Circle, the official provider of USDC, which is arguably one of the largest and most liquid stablecoins right now in blockchain, boasting over $28 billion worth of liquidity, is requesting an 8-figure amount from the Cardano community in order to integrate natively on the growing ecosystem. Now, should Charles Hoskinson be paying for this? The Cardano Foundation, Emergo, or IOG? As a part of today's video, I want to talk about who should be in charge of paying for this integration if the community really does want this to happen. What is up, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central. I'm your host here, Fareed. As a part of today's video, there's an interesting topic and ongoing conversation on X happening, which I want to highlight. So that is going to be surrounding business development and the greater reach that Cardano should have within the blockchain space. If you guys watch my content, you know that my channel focuses solely on Cardano and highlighting all of the different builders and contributors that we have in this space. Now, one of the biggest issues that we have right now within Cardano specifically is a lack of liquidity as well as stable coins compared to other competing layer 1 protocols. So what I want to do is highlight some questions that have come in from the community, but I also want to pose you, the viewer, a question surrounding how should Cardano move forward with respect to growing its business reach and partnerships, as well as just adopting more liquidity and interest into the ecosystem. So we have, just to kick us off, a tweet that was posted surrounding Cardano. So this is coming in from John McPherson, who states Cardano needs a separate entity focused on business development and partnerships for the entire ecosystem. I feel like it's quite the task to do, but something deeply needed. Now, some of you may be aware of the founding arms of Cardano. We've got Emergo, which is aiming to be, or which is dealing with the commercial aspect of Cardano. We've also got the Cardano Foundation, which is nonprofit, and their goal is to broaden the reach of the Cardano blockchain through different partnerships as well. And then last but not least, we've got IOG, whose job it is to lead some of the research and developments when it comes to the blockchain itself. Now, with respect to business development, this is where we might need a new arm or a potential use of the Treasury for Cardano. So I want to talk a little bit about the Cardano Treasury. But for those of you who aren't aware, right, when we're dealing with business development, that's referring to improving profitability and talking to customers to network and potentially bring new adoption and partnership. So in order to improve our business development here on Cardano, there's basically two ways to go about it, right? We either have one of the founding 3 arms basically push that forward for us, or we can utilize something like the Cardano Treasury. So let's talk about the Treasury, but then let's also talk a little bit about USDC. So USDC has been a pretty big topic as well. I released a poll not too long on my channel asking the community as to whether or not they thought adding USDC would be a positive thing for Cardano with respect to liquidity specifically. And the majority of the viewers did agree that they would like to see USDC. Now, one of the biggest drawbacks, and I think one of the biggest talking points about integrating USDC on Cardano, is the fact that Circle wants the ability to freeze assets and potentially blacklist certain addresses, which right now on Cardano isn't necessarily feasible. Now, whether or not there would be some sort of Cardano improvement proposal that comes forward to allow for that to happen will be seen, right? Or will Circle be okay with kind of relinquishing some of those controls in order to integrate into a platform like Cardano? Either way, what we have heard and what we can confirm, which actually did come from Charles Hoskinson himself, is the fact that USDC would be requesting more than 8 figures in order to deploy USDC on Cardano. So anywhere between the range of $10 million all the way to $99 million. Now, just to play it safe, let's go ahead and maybe just jump in at the middle mark there. I think 50 million is still probably higher than what Circle would want to use. But just to kind of lay out this example that I'm going to walk through here with the Cardano Treasury and adopting USDC, we'll just stick with that nice median number of $50 million. So we've got a tweet, and I'm going to go ahead and just quickly pull this up here for you guys to check out as well, which states, why can't IOHK Media pay for USDC? Then this person points at Charles Hoskinson and says, Charles, it seems like it should be a priority for onboarding more devs and users. 8 figures is a lot, but Cardano is a multi-billion-dollar asset. Charles responds stating, why should I pay? Why is this my responsibility? Please explain it to me like I'm 5. For full transparency, I don't think that Charles should have to pay for any integrations or partnerships directly out of his pocket. That's exactly why we have the Treasury. That's why we have IOG, the Cardano Foundation, and Emergo. Now, keep in mind that with those 3 founding entities, I feel like they get flack either way. If they are to spend their assets, people then say, hey, they're dumping on the community. If they hold their assets, just like they are right now, right after the last bull run, those assets have basically depreciated in their US dollar denomination. So if they were to spend it now, they would have less of an impact, or they'd be getting less for their ADA's worth, as opposed to them actually having waited, potentially sold during the top of the bull market, and then utilize those funds to push Cardano forward. So I feel like those 3 founding entities are in a really tight spot when it comes to spending ADA. Either they're framed as dumping on the community, or they're utilizing or spending their ADA, but not necessarily getting all of their money's worth. Either way, that was the post that I wanted to quickly go ahead and share with you. Now, my thought is that we should utilize something like the Treasury instead in order to actually pay or fund some of these major integrations that will bring millions of dollars to Cardano for liquidity, right? Which not only benefits the builders, it benefits the users on the network, but then it also attracts new builders and new users from outside of Cardano. So putting aside the blacklisting and the freezing, let's assume, right, that the entire Cardano community is on board in order to onboard something like USDC. Now, to be fully fair here, I do think that it's always better to have more than a single option. Again, I know that we're expecting Mehen to launch. That's great, but in the event that we just want more options, let's just take the scenario where we want to bring on USDC in addition to Mehen, in addition to IUSD, as well as JED, MyUSD, and all these other stable coins, right? Because again, the more that we have, the more liquidity. So let's talk a little bit more about the Treasury, and then I want to lay out a case here towards the very end of this video. So if I jump over to the official Cardano documentation website, it states here that Cardano aims to achieve true decentralization with the introduction of Voltaire. Voltaire is going to be the governance era, which we're currently working through right now, with a potential MVP for SIP number 1694, which will aim to put all governance actions within the Cardano community's hands. Voltaire includes decentralized voting and treasury systems to empower the Cardano community to influence Cardano's evolution. This basically means that once Voltaire takes place and SIP number 1694 is in full effect, the Cardano community will be fully in charge of how the treasury funds are spent, right? Whether or not that money goes towards integrating USDC, bootstrapping other existing protocols, etc. Now, this is aiming again to provide a funding mechanism to transform Cardano into a self-funded, self-sustainable environment. Scrolling down just a little bit there, it states maintaining, developing, and improving a blockchain project requires ongoing monetary support. That's a no-brainer there. When Voltaire is going to be implemented, the Treasury will perform this function, and funding for new features, improvements, etc. will be allocated through a decentralized voting system. So it sounds like to me, over the course of the implementation of SIP number 1694, we're going to see a lot of the power, right, go into the community's hands. That means if 83% of the entire Cardano community want to integrate something like USDC for a fee of $50 million, and that goes up to a vote, if they have the majority, that would then push Cardano to adopt something like USDC. Again, that's what this entire decentralized ecosystem is all about, making sure that the majority's voice is heard in a way that the community feels comfortable with, which is on-chain voting. So scrolling down, the Treasury basically has 2 functions. The first function, right, is to offer rewards to people who participate in the network. This is going to be in the form of stake pool operators, right? So SPOs, they basically earn ADA every epoch as long as they mint blocks or process transactions or propagate transactions on the Cardano ledger. Very similarly, stake pool delegates also earn ADA given the fact that the blocks are minted with whoever their SPO is. Now, the second feature is to actually fund the treasury. So number one, reward SPOs. Number two is to fund the actual treasury. Scrolling down, it breaks down the two sources for stake pool rewards. I'm not going to jump into that, but then it talks a little bit more about actually funding the treasury. So in closing, it reads, the treasury's goal is to provide or to provision funds to develop Cardano activities through a voting process. This necessitates a process whereby funds are regularly sent to the treasury to ensure that funds are always available. So that leads me to the next point, which is how much ADA and how many dollars are currently in the treasury. Well, I've gone ahead and dug up a little bit here, which I want to go ahead and present to you guys. So taking a look here at ADA Insights, what we have is going to be since epoch number 200, we now have over 1.4 billion ADA, which is equivalent to $740 million currently stored in the Cardano Treasury. To put this into perspective, what we've seen is 50 million ADA being given away or being provided to the Cardano community for the latest Project Catalyst funding round. This allows for the community to vote on projects or ideas that they would like to see funded. And that right now is equivalent to somewhere around $25 million. So you could imagine if we wanted to really get something like USDC on Cardano, right? Foregoing something like Project Catalyst for about 2 rounds, that would give us the $50 million mark that I said earlier. Again, that $50 million, I do personally think is on the higher end that it would take for something like USDC to integrate on Cardano, but we'll just stick with that number for the time being. Now, in terms of how much ADA is actually going into the treasury per epoch, right? So every 5 days, we have right now somewhere around, let's see here, 5 million ADA, which is going towards the Cardano Treasury. So that's about $2.5 million going towards the Treasury. If I just pull up my calculator here and do a little bit of math, what I'm going to do is $50 million that we've put up right now for the circle integration, and we're going to divide that by $2.5 million per epoch. That gives us about 20 epochs. And if we multiply that by 5, that's about 100 days to potentially get the amount that we would need to integrate something like USDC. I don't know about you. That's a third of a year. Doesn't seem like it's too long, right? I definitely think that it would be worth it. Again, putting aside the blacklisting and the freezing of assets. So let me know what you think down below. Again, just doing a little bit of math there. If USDC takes $50 million to integrate, which again, I think is on the high end, and the Cardano Treasury is receiving about $2.5 million per epoch, that would take us around 20 epochs or roughly about 100 days to get the amount that we would need to integrate USDC here on Cardano. Again, just to corroborate these numbers, I did take a look at additional sources. Right now, the Cardano Treasury is made up of about 4.4% of the supply of Cardano that's currently in circulation. Again, that Treasury amount sits at 1.46 billion, which right now is valued at nearing $800 million. Now, just for the sake of putting this to, just to put this in another way to make it simple to understand, if we take $800 million, right, which is roughly what's in the current treasury, and we divide that, or we take the 50 million and divide that by the total amount of the treasury, that gives us about 6% of the total treasury. So as it stands right now, we would have to utilize 6% of the entire Cardano treasury in order to utilize $50 million in order to onboard something like USDC. So let me know what you guys think down below. Is that particular amount worth it? You know, but it's interesting to see so much conversation going on right now when it comes to integrating something like USDC and exactly how Cardano can further push its business development in order to, number one, bring in more liquidity, number two, you know, give a boost to the name of Cardano, and then number three, also just bring in more partners and potentially eyeballs into the ecosystem. I think that'll do it here for today's video. Again, I wanted to, number one, just raise some of the recent concerns that we've seen surrounding business development on Cardano and how we can improve that. But then number two, touching on the fact that right now, as it stands, the Cardano Treasury has more than enough in order to actually fund the integration of something like USDC, as long as the community can agree on all of the other aspects and nuance that something like USDC would bring over into Cardano. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be in the throes right now of the Voltaire era. Once Voltaire wraps up and governance is in full effect, this will basically come down to the entire community. So if the majority do vote to integrate and spend, the proper funds from the treasury in order to add something like USDC to Cardano, it will inevitably happen. So let me know what you guys think down below. Did you guys enjoy this analysis? If you did, let me know. If I got anything wrong or if you disagree with any portion of this, definitely let me know as well. If you found this to be useful, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by Dapp Central and you want more content like this, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions surrounding anything else that we've chatted about, then make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below. That said, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video.